I probably shouldn't talk about this. Should I? Uh, oh, I probably shouldn't. Uh, uh, I really don't want to talk about this, but it's. Oh, well, it's too late now, I guess. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special video series about a very old doujinshi that I used to draw, which has been in the making since I was actually really little when you look into the history. Now, this video is going to talk about the history of this series, and then I'm going to have other videos that talk about different parts of the series. Now, keep in mind that I never actually finished this series, and this is something that I worked on a long time ago, even before Cardcaptor Chronicles, and it's kind of like my baby, but at the same time, it's so old and I've abandoned it so long ago, but I still like the basic concept and the idea of it. I'd love to do an actual story based on this sort of thing, but I don't think that's ever going to actually happen. But since this is still the first fanfiction I ever wrote, even before I knew what a fanfiction was, I figured I might as well share it with you. Not that you really care, but whatever. So, what is this mysterious fanfiction that I'm talking about? Well, it's called, oh gosh, this name. Digimon Unlimited. Yes, it's a Digimon fic, although it's not necessarily centered. Well, the main storyline is Digimon centric, but I'll get into that later. For now, we're just going to focus on how the story got started and what inspired me to write it. Now, this goes way, way back into my childhood. And I mean childhood. We're talking early 90s here. Of course, that's long before Digimon started, let alone aired in America, but again, we'll get to that later. So picture, if you will, a little 5-year-old me trying to get sleep at night. But my active imagination runs so wild that I usually can't get to sleep unless I focus on something. So what did my wandering mind decide to focus on? TV shows. Specifically, my favorite Nicktoons, since I wasn't really that much of a Cartoon Network or Disney kid, especially since we didn't really have those channels. Well, we had Toon Disney for a while, but then we got rid of it, and I didn't know about Cartoon Network, so it was mostly Nickelodeon for me. Anyway, my little pre-bed dreams focused not quite so much on the TV show itself, as far as creating adventures for the characters with myself involved into it. And the way my little before bed daydreams like to explain it, I had the strange ability to jump into the TV. I can't believe I'm telling people this. But I imagined that I had this strange ability to jump into the TV and join the characters on adventures. Sometimes I'd create my own, and other times I'd join them in the adventures that they had in the TV show, usually whatever episode had aired that day that I really liked. And oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm telling people this. I've never told anyone this, and now I'm telling the whole internet! So, yay! But all that aside, it continued to be that I was jumping into the TV for the longest time until I saw, you guessed it, Digimon. My big brother got me into Digimon, and I fell in love with it, not right away, but basically I would go over to my mom's every other weekend, and my brother would watch it on Fox Kids. I wasn't really all that interested, and then I actually started paying attention and realized, oh my gosh, this is amazing! And by then I was still doing this sort of fun little thing before bed to help myself get to sleep. Ironically enough, I'm having some great adventure and then I fall asleep to it. Which I never really understood. I'm having fun, I'm having like this whole blast right before bed, and then I fall asleep right at the climax. Almost always falling asleep at the climax. But let's try to get past that now. So I start watching Digimon with my big brother, really enjoying it, And then Digimon Adventure 2 came along, and that was when I decided to change my method of joining the characters from my favorite TV show. For a while, it was just that I was pretending to be a Digidestin, and because of this, I could go to other worlds as well. But eventually, as I got older and started having questions about this, I realized, hey, how come I can go to other worlds and these other Digidestin can't? Or at least in my fantasy, I'm not some weirdo who thinks this actually happened. Just wanted to make that clear. Anyway, I kept thinking about it, and I thought about how, while the Digidestin in the TV show can only travel to one world, in my fantasy I was saying that I could go to any world, and that was when I decided to come up with a name for a special kind of Digidestin, and I came up with this whole story about how they were special kids from the real world, aka our world, and they were able to get special Digivices that would let them go to the digital world, and then after they go to the digital world and find out they're Digidestined, they can go to other worlds, and I came up with a specific name for these characters. And they were called the Multi-Digidestined. Now, yes, I say characters because it eventually became not just me. I created new characters who would join me on adventures in the digital world, and eventually on adventures in the other world. And these characters were admittedly based off of real people in my life. For a while there, these characters were based off of friends that I had made when I was staying at my mother's every other weekend, and we would all play, and we'd have our own Pokemon toys and some Digimon toys, and we'd play, and we'd pretend that we were in Team Rocket for some reason. But in the end, only one of them actually stayed as a main character of my eventual doujinshi. He was my ex-boyfriend, my first boyfriend, and he turned out to be a real jerk. Not only was he a jerk, but he was also kind of a pervert, especially since I was only 10 years old at the time. It's like, why are you perverted with me when I don't even have anything to be perverted with? Anyway, that's getting off subject. So I wound up making him kind of like a start. He's a character, and he's a main character, he's a hero, and then he turns into an evil character. So yeah, my first ex-boyfriend turned into the main villain of my first fanfiction. But the other characters kind of fell into the backdrop after I stopped playing with them, and eventually I wound up only having one other main character in the group. We wound up being a trio, and the other character was based off of another friend that I met a few years later in middle school. Her name was Crystal. I'm not going to say her last name or anything, but she was my best friend at the time, and then she moved away. But even after she moved away, she was still a prominent character in my fanfiction that I was just now starting to actually put down on paper. Although I didn't actually start drawing it out until she had left, so I guess her leaving was sort of what inspired me to start drawing it out on paper, because I missed her. She was my best friend. She was the second best friend I'd had. The first one, there was a misunderstanding and we wound up breaking apart really harshly. I'm not going to get into that because we're friends now. But she became a prominent character, especially in the first arc of the story that focuses on her and me, or at least our characters. And I continued to work on this story a lot. Like, I would work on it at home, I'd work on it on the bus, waiting for the bus. I'd work on it during break periods at school. While we're waiting for class to start, I'd just pull out my sketchbook and start drawing. And I really enjoyed this story that I was drawing on paper. And other people sometimes came up to me and they would look at it and they thought it was pretty good. I have no idea why, because if I look at it now, I realize how terrible of an artist I was at the time, and it just makes me wonder how in the world my classmates thought I was tracing this stuff. It's like, it's so disproportionate, it's not even funny, it's just really bad. It's not like a 5-year-old's doodles, but I didn't really improve that much between when I was a little kid drawing Pokemon paper dolls and in high school drawing this doujinshi. But at least at the time, my background skills were matched with my people drawing skills, so I was able to draw a lot more backgrounds at the time, which if you look at my stuff on DeviantArt, I usually avoid drawing backgrounds because I'm not really good at it, because I haven't had much practice with it as I have with drawing people. But, like all good things, the story eventually did have to come to an end. And that was about when I reached my senior year in high school. I met my new best friend, Noriko, and she noticed in one of my Digimon magazines that I had that there was an ad in the back for card captors. She's like, "Oh, you like card captors?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I used to love it when it was on TV." She's like, "Oh, I've got the whole thing on DVD." And then I got into Card Captor Sakura, eventually despising card captors as an English dub. And that's sort of how I got into anime, and I put Digimon Unlimited to the side and started working on Cardcaptor Chronicles after that. So that's basically the story of this fanfiction's history and why I no longer write for it. I mean, I probably could pick it back up if I really wanted to, but I don't really want to redraw everything that I've already drawn, and it would seem kind of weird to have it in one way and then all of a sudden, bam, 10 years later, well, not 10, like 7 years later, I'm so much better now. It would be kind of weird. Plus, I'm not really all that interested in it anymore. I've gone beyond, I've evolved in my writing and drawing, and I've pretty much abandoned the project. But I still like to look back at it sometimes. I still like to imagine some of the other characters who were multi-digi-destined, who came along after the main characters in the first story arc. I sometimes like to imagine them in some of the worlds that I had eventually put them into, which is still kind of fun, but I don't do it as much, and I don't really care to write a story about it. It's just, oh, this would be kind of fun if this person was still going through worlds and she could join them. It's like, yeah, but I'll get into that in a future video. For now, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed listening to me ramble on about embarrassing stuff from my past, and I hope you have a very good day. If you like this video and would like to see more, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.